You didn't wake up one day and lose yourself. It didn't happen dramatically. There was no breakdown, no crisis, no moment where you thought, this is where I disappear. You adjusted. That's how it started. You noticed what made people comfortable, what avoided tension, what earned approval, what kept things stable, and you adapted. At first, it was subtle. You softened certain opinions. You laughed when something wasn't funny. You agreed faster. You hesitated less. You became easier, and it worked. People responded well. Conflict decreased. You felt safer. So you adapted again. A little quieter here, a little more driven there, a little less emotional, a little more agreeable. Not because you were fake, because you were intelligent. You understood something early. Belonging requires adjustment, so you became adjustable. And over time, adjustment became identity. But here's where it gets unsettling. If you adjust long enough to fit every environment, eventually you forget your original shape. You don't feel fake, you feel functional. And that's more dangerous, because functionality gets rewarded. People describe you as mature, reliable, stable, easy to be around. But underneath that, there's a quiet exhaustion. Not physical exhaustion, identity exhaustion. The kind that shows up when you're alone, when you're not performing, when no one needs anything from you. And you feel this strange thought, I don't actually know who I am. That feeling doesn't mean you're broken. It might mean you adapted too well. Most people think losing yourself happens through chaos, through rebellion, through trauma, through dramatic collapse. But more often, it happens through compliance, through optimization, through becoming exactly what works. You survived your environment. Maybe love felt conditional. Maybe approval had rules. Maybe conflict felt dangerous. So you studied the patterns. You became who worked. That's not weakness. That's survival intelligence. But survival strategies are not meant to become permanent identities. They're meant to protect you temporarily. When they become permanent, you start living defensively. You choose what's safe over what's true, what's practical over what's meaningful, what's acceptable over what's honest. And your life continues. You function, you achieve, you maintain. But something feels slightly distant, like you're watching yourself live, like your reactions are rehearsed, like you're always slightly adjusting the volume of who you are. That's the cost of chronic adaptation. You become skilled at fitting in, but unfamiliar with standing alone. And here's the part most people don't say out loud. When you've adapted your entire personality around minimizing rejection, you stop asking what you want. You start asking what makes sense, what's realistic, what's expected, what's responsible. And eventually, your preferences become quiet, your strange interests fade, your emotional impulses get filtered, your honest reactions get moderated, not because you're dishonest, because you're optimized. But optimization isn't the same as authenticity. And that's why, even if your life looks stable, it can feel strangely empty, not catastrophic, just muted. That muted feeling, it isn't failure, it's friction. It's the part of you that wasn't built around survival, trying to return. Let's pause here, because this is important. You didn't disappear because you were weak. You disappeared because you were effective. You learned the rules. You mastered them. You became adaptable. But adaptability without awareness turns into self-erasure. And the unsettling part is, there's no villain to blame, no dramatic event to point to. You simply became what worked, and forgot to check if it was still you. So what does returning look like? It's not dramatic reinvention. It's not quitting your job tomorrow. It's not abandoning your life. It's quieter than that. It's noticing when you're performing. It's pausing before automatically agreeing. It's catching yourself mid-adjustment and asking, do I actually think this? Do I actually want this? What would I say if I wasn't trying to maintain stability? At first, that feels uncomfortable because the adaptive version of you equates safety with approval and authenticity with risk. But here's the shift. You're no longer in the same environment that required constant adjustment. You're just still operating like you are. The traits that once protected you might now be limiting you. And returning isn't about rejecting who you became. It's about updating. You don't destroy the survival version of yourself. You thank it. It kept you safe. But you don't let it run everything anymore. And slowly, something begins to feel different. You notice small preferences again, small disagreements, small curiosities, small impulses that feel genuine. They're subtle, but they're real. That's not emptiness you've been feeling. It's compression. And when you stop compressing yourself, even slightly, you begin to expand again. Not loudly, not dramatically, but intentionally. You adapted so well, you disappeared. But disappearance is gradual, which means return is gradual too. And maybe that quiet discomfort you've been feeling isn't a crisis, it's a signal. Something real is trying to come back. If this resonated with you, I'd genuinely like to hear your thoughts. What's one way you notice yourself automatically adapting? Let me know in the comments. And if this kind of psychological deep dive is something you find valuable, consider subscribing. This channel is about understanding the parts of ourselves we rarely examine. And if you found this helpful, leaving a like helps the video reach more people who might need to hear it. You don't need to reinvent yourself overnight. Sometimes, you just need to stop adjusting long enough to notice who's still there. I'll see you in the next one.